Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another computer science lecture. Today we would be starting section number 5, the internet and its uses. And in this section today we would be discussing section 1.5.1, the internet and the World Wide Web. So what is the internet? The internet is a globally connected network system facilitating worldwide communication and access to data resources through a huge collection of personal, public, business, academic and government networks. In short, you can simply say that the internet is a network of networks. It is a network that is on a global scale, and it is formed by connecting different smaller networks into a singular backbone. This is known as infrastructure and presents all of the physical pieces of equipment, means the hardware, that are connected through service providers to servers all around the world. WWW, or that is short for World Wide Web. The World Wide Web is a small part of the internet which the user can access via a web browser. It is the collection of websites, web pages, blogs and social media sites and so many other things that store the information which the user wishes to access. These web pages are stored on servers and users access them using the internet infrastructure. You need to connect your device or your laptop or your cell phone to the internet before you can access the WWW or the World Wide Web or a website on the internet. In short, internet is a global network of networks. WWW stands for World Wide Web. Internet is a means of connecting a computer to any other computer anywhere in the world. WWW is a collection of information which is accessed by the internet. Internet is the infrastructure. WWW is the service on top of that infrastructure. Internet is primarily hardware based. WWW or World Wide Web is software based. Internet uses IP address. WWW uses HTTP, means either URLs or the domain names. Next thing we have is Uniform Resource Locator or URL. A web browser can allow users to access and display web pages, and every page on the WWW has its own address which is called its URL or Uniform Resource Locator. A Uniform Resource Locator is a text address that is used to access a certain website. For example, when you type www.google.com, then you will always land on the Google page. It would not be possible that you type in google.com but the page for Yahoo or MSN or Microsoft or any other website would pop up. Every page has a unique URL, every website has a unique URL, and whenever you type that URL, then you always land on that specific website. A URL is typed into a web browser, basically the address bar of a web browser, using the following format. First of all, we have the protocol, then we have the website address, then we have the path or directory name, and lastly we have the file name. Protocol is usually either HTTP or HTTPS. In some rare cases it is FTP, file transfer protocol. FTP we basically only use when we are trying to connect to a server through our web browser. Otherwise, for normal websites it is either HTTPS or HTTP. Website address contains domain name, a domain host, that is www, means it shows that this website is available for the public on the internet. Then a domain name, for example, that is the web server name, and domain type. For example, Google is the web server name and .com is the domain type. Path or directory name is the folder structure on the web server leading to where the requested web page is located. and file name is the name with or without file extension of the requested web page. Here are two examples. This is GC guide. This is the protocol https papers.gcguide.com. This would be the domain name, and /0/o%20 levels. This is the path. This indicates the a folder on the web server, and computer science 202210 is supposed to be the file name. https is the path, www.bbc.co.uk is the domain name, bytesize/subjects is the path, and z34k7ty is the file name. I'll give you another example. www. Let's say exandler.net / let's suppose home, and index.html would be the file name. This is how it works. So in the paper, the examiner is going to give you a written domain name, and then you would have to identify different parts of it. This is always the protocol, this is the domain name or the server name, then we have the path, and then we have the file name. Remember this format. Every website address has a URL with an equivalent internet protocol address. IP addresses are made up of numbers and letters and can be very difficult for a user to remember. So what happens basically when you type in www.google.com? So basically a DNS server kicks in. It resolves that domain. What is the meaning of resolving a domain? It basically converts that domain name into an IP address, and then your browser uses that IP address in order to access the server where the web pages are stored, and from that server the web browser retrieves the files and displays them to you as a website. We'll discuss that later on. For now, this much is enough for you to know. Next, we have a difference between HTTP and HTTPS. They both are protocols for accessing websites. HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol, and it is a protocol or a prescribed order and syntax for presenting information, and it is used for transmitting data over a network, almost always through HTML or PHP hypertext markup language. Most information that is sent over the internet, including website content, uses the HTTP protocol. But when we have some websites which needs an extra layer of security, for example banking websites, online shopping websites, or any other website that needs to enter your credit card information, then we go for a secure version of the protocol that is known as HTTPS, Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure, or Secure Hypertext Transfer Protocol. The S stands for secure. It uses TLS or SSL in order to encrypt the HTTP requests and responses, so that if a hacker tries to obtain what information you are sending to the web server, the hacker would not be able to get that information. He would get the packets, but since the information would be encrypted, so he would not be able to decipher it and read your contents. So your personal information would be safe. When using websites such as online banking or online purchases, the protocol changes from HTTP to Secure Hypertext Transfer Protocol, that is HTTPS. This can be noticed by looking at the address bar of the browser being used to access the web pages. A green lock symbol would appear and the HTTP would change to HTTPS. The data packets are encrypted before they are transmitted and are decrypted only when they reach their intended destination. This ensures that hackers would be unable to access the private and confidential information, as they would be unable to decipher the encryption. Any data that was intercepted during this process would be meaningless to the hacker, so the sad hacker would just be left crying. Although he would have gotten your files, he would not be able to open them. The next topic which we have in this section is web browser. What is a web browser? The main application on a computer, or the main software on a computer, that is used to retrieve and display web pages. Most web pages are written in a variety of different programming languages, including HTML, that is hypertext markup language, JavaScript, PHP, cascading style sheet, CSS, etc. The job of the web browser, or the main job or the main task of a web browser, is to translate that code that is mainly in HTML from websites and display it to the user as a web page, as a readable, as a legible web page. Apart from that, some other functions that a web browser performs are bookmark and favorites, keeping browsing history. Bookmark and favorite is an option inside every browser where the websites you visit frequently or the websites you like, you can save them. Means you can save the URLs inside the browser. That is known as bookmarking or saving favorites. Keeping browsing history, whatever websites, web pages you visit, their URL is stored. Tabbed browsing, that means you can open multiple websites at the same time in a browser. Then cookie handling, we'll discuss cookies in detail later on. Then we have navigation tools, means on every page you get the option for going to the previous page or to the next page. And finally we have an address bar in order to type in the URL of a website. Next we have the components of HTML. HTML can be divided into two parts. The structure, it is the essential part of HTML code. Now this is the keyword, essential part of HTML code that forms up the basics of a website, e.g. body, or you can say head or HTML tags. And the next part is the presentation, the style of the document applied, or the code that is applied to make the website more attractive, easier to navigate, or easier to read. And the examples for that is JavaScript or CSS. These two are used to enhance the appearance or the ease of navigation or the readability of a website. Hence they are a part of presentation. As you can see, basically JavaScript is known as the behavior, because you can add some extra functionality to your web page using the JavaScript. CSS comes under presentation mostly, and content in the structure is written in either HTML or PHP. Usually modern websites consist of all three components. This is not really a part of your syllabus, so you can ignore this, but these two you should know very well, what is structure and what is presentation. Next we have something that is known as domain name server. So what is a domain name or DNS server? The domain name system is the phone book of the internet. It is a special type of server which contains a DNS directory. What is a DNS directory? Every web server on the internet has an IP address which can be used to access files on that web server. Now it is very difficult for a normal user to remember IP addresses, but remembering domain names are easier. For example, remembering google.com, facebook.com, yahoo.com is easy, daraz.pk is easy, but remembering 192.168.0.10, 192.145.250.0 is difficult. So we have DNS servers DNS servers contain a list of domain names and their associated IP addresses. So whenever you type in, so a common user do not have to remember the IP addresses. A common user simply have to just know the easy to learn web address or a URL of a website, and as soon as the user types that URL into a web browser contacts the DNS server or the domain name server, which looks it up into its database and responds with the associated IP address of that server, and thus the user is able to access the website without remembering its actual IP address. When user type domain names such as google.com or nytimes.com, DNS is responsible for finding the correct IP address for those websites. Browsers then use those addresses to communicate with original or origin servers to access website information. This is an image of how it works. First of all, the browser says, for example, I need directions to wpbeginner.com. Then it goes to a DNS server. The domain name wpbeginner.com is not in my database. I'll try another so if it is not found on the one DNS server, there are billions and billions of websites on the internet. So one single server, one single domain name server cannot store the DNS index for or DNS listing for all the websites. So there are multiple servers in each and every region. In each and every domain there is a separate DNS server. So if the website you're trying to access is not found on your local DNS server, it sends a request to the next DNS server, and so on, until one of the DNS server finally says, yes, this domain name is in my listing and the relevant IP address is this. It responds this IP address to the first server, which stores it in its cache, so that if any more requests are made, this server is able to provide the IP address, and it also replies it back to the user, to the browser, and the browser gets the domain name or the direction, and then the browser is able to communicate with the web server and retrieve web pages from that server once it has this IP address. Now next we have is something that is known as cookies. A cookie is a packet of information sent by a web server to a web browser. When you are browsing a website, you often see a message, please accept cookies. When you click on accept all or accept, then some very small files are downloaded from the web server into your browser or onto your device. They don't contain personal information, but rather they capture anonymous data about surfing trend of the user, what type of pages you saw or what type of products you served, so that next time you go onto the website, it can suggest you pages or products according to your choices, your likes. There are two types of cookies. One is if a cookie does not contain an expiration date, it is considered a session cookie. Session cookies are stored in memory and never written to disk. They are withheld in the memory or the cache of your browser. When the browser closes, the cookie is permanently lost from this point on. Since it is never written onto hard drive, so as soon as you close the browser, these cookies are erased. They are temporary. They are used, for example, when making online purchases. They are used for maintaining your shopping cart. When you click on add to cart button, then a temporary session cookie is made, which holds whatever item you select for purchase into your virtual shopping cart for a while, and that is controlled by a session cookie. If the cookie contains an expiration date, it is considered a persistent cookie. This is the second type of cookie, a persistent cookie. The first one was session cookies, the next one is persistent cookie. On the date specified, the cookie will be removed from the disk. They are very efficient way of carrying data from one website session to another, or even between sessions on related websites. For example, you want to save your you have added some items for purchase to your shopping cart, but you don't want to pay today, you want to pay 5 days later. So in this case, persistent cookies can keep your shopping cart alive, or the items you selected or the list you made alive for next 5 days, and then you can make the payment and place your order. Whereas if you would be using session cookies, then as soon as you close your browser, your order is gone. Next time you enter the website, you'll have to start over. Anyways, in short, persistent cookies are used for allowing visitors to opt for remembering password and autofill form filling such as email, username, employee ID, date of birth, etc. They are used as memory to recognize returning visitors by the web server. They are used to manage virtual shopping carts. They are used to track visitors' habits, stats, and web history or bookmarks. They are used by advertisers to deliver ad content most tailored to a visitor's previous buying or surfing behavior. Since these cookies contain anonymous data about what type of products you like to surf on a shopping website, or what type of websites or pages you like to see, so on basis of that information, the ad services are able to deliver you ads of your interest. They are used to store user preferences, for example, disable auto-playing of videos, or such as if you go on an online class for Zoom or Google Meet, then you can opt for keep my mic disabled, or shut off my camera, and many other options. They are used in online financial transactions in order to hold the financial transaction temporarily until it is written permanently. They are used to store progress in online games or quizzes. They are used by social media websites to perceive preferences and browsing data, and they are used to automatically display web page in another language as soon as user logs in. There can be many other uses. These are some of the most common uses. You can write any other uses as well, as long as they are valid, and you can search them up on the internet. I hope you have understood. This was section 5.1. Take care. Ask me if you have any problem. I'll see you guys in the next lecture. Allah Hafiz.